I've always believed my original teacher was a man named Jim Rohn, a personal development speaker, and he said, Tony, success leaves clues. He said, if you want happiness, study happiness. You want to find people that are happy no matter what, find out what they do and do that. Don't study people around you who aren't happy and say, I can't figure out how to do it. You're learning from the wrong people. He used to say, find out what rich people read. And rich was to him, not just financial, it was emotionally rich, spiritually rich, and financially rich, physically rich in energies. Find out what rich people read and read that. And he said, find out what poor people read and don't read that, because you're building the fabric of your life through what you feed it, right, in your mind.
There's no such thing as a good or bad memory. There is no such thing as a good or bad memory. There's just a trained memory and an untrained memory. Does that make sense?
You need an ideal because you have nothing to aim at, but an ideal is a judge, and you always fall short of the ideal. So how the hell can you have the benefits of having an ideal without having the crushing blow that goes along with having the judge that always regards you as insufficient?
So you can speed up your ability to achieve by modeling, by finding someone who's already achieved what you want, and then finding out what do they do differently than you. And it might have taken them 10 or 20 years to figure it out. They might be able to teach you the secrets that what makes them successful in 2 or 3 days, 2 or 3 hours, 2 or 3 weeks, 2 or 3 months. But my whole focus is how do you compress decades into days? So the science of achievement, the ability to take whatever you dream about and make it real, I've studied it. I spent my lifetime looking for the best strategies for your body, for emotions, relationships. That's what I teach. So I'm all in on that, and I've gotten the benefit of it. And I know it works because I've demonstrated it with my own body, with my own relationships, with my own finances, every aspect of life. So I know most of you are good achievers, and this is something you can study, but for this conversation, there's a second skill that I believe is the most important skill. But when I tell you what it is, it'll seem trite to you initially, I'm sure, because our culture doesn't reinforce this. Our culture teaches you to achieve, break through, find the way, and that's beautiful. But you can achieve everything and still be miserable. In fact, do you know somebody who has things that you'd love to have in your life? A great relationship, great kids, a great business, great economics, and they're still pissed off, frustrated, overwhelmed? I always tell people there's nothing worse than an angry rich man or angry rich woman. You just want to smack them because they have everything going for themselves, but they're there. So the second skill, the more important skill than achievement, is the art of fulfillment. Notice I didn't say the science of fulfillment, I said the art. And the reason it's art is every human being in this world is different in some way. What turns you on, what excites you, what fulfills you will be different than the person next to you, even if they're your lover or your best friend. If you want to know what God or the universe values, it's diversity. Go to any forest, what do you see? Everything's different. It's not the same. So for us to be fulfilled, we've got to find what is that trigger.
We've all got to have a philosophy about activity, because your philosophy of activity will affect the rest of your life. Not to think so is naive. I've got a good clue on rest. Make rest a necessity, not an objective. The reason for life is enterprise. The reason for life is productivity. The reason for life is to see what we can do with the seasons and the chances and our mind and our spirit, ourselves, to see what we can do. That's what life is all about, to see what you can do. Now, the doing, you've got to have a philosophy on how much time you're going to spend doing. And I've decided that enterprise is better than ease. If you rest too long, the weeds take the garden in the summer. So you can't rest too long. Life doesn't stand still. And the threat of life will start overwhelming the values of life if you just let it go. So we've all got to have a philosophy about activity. Let me give you one of the best I know. Here's what it says. An ancient phrase says, whatever your hands find to do, do it with all your might. That's a philosophy. You say, well, I'm getting by with half my might. Well, okay, but you've got to decide on your own personal philosophy of activity. Now, this philosophy says, do it with all your might. Do you think there's any value or virtue in that? Well, I don't know. You've got to decide. You've got to weigh this out, right? You've got to evaluate it for yourself and put it on your own mental scales, and you've got to come up with your own answers. How hard should you work?
Your brain is like a supercomputer, and your self-talk is a program it will run. So if you tell yourself you're not good at remembering names, you will not remember the name of the next person you meet because you programmed your supercomputer not to. Isn't that interesting? What I always tell people is this: you have to monitor your self-talk. Monitor your self-talk. If you go around tell people, oh, I have a horrible memory, I'm not smart enough, I'm getting too old, fill in the blank. First of all, if you fight for your limitations, you get to keep them. Does that make sense? A lot of people like, oh, I'm so forgetful, I'm so busy, which that whole busyness really bothers me. Like where people, how are you doing? I'm just so crazy, so stressed, so busy. It becomes like a badge of honor that people wear all the time. And then what do you start reinforcing? Being busy, right? But here, going back to this, your self-talk is the program that will run, so you want to be mindful, right? And stand guard to your mind, because your mind is always eavesdropping on your self-talk. Your mind is always eavesdropping on your self-talk.
Let's say you need a goal, but we don't want to let your distance from the goal crush you. So you got to set up a goal, and then you got to break the goal down into parts so that you can move towards it and you have a fairly high likelihood of doing it. So that's a bit of practical, I wouldn't say advice, it's because it's better than advice. It's some practical knowledge about how to go about achieving an aim. Set a high aim, but differentiate it down so you know what the next step is, and then make the next step difficult enough so you have to push yourself past where you are, but also provide yourself with a reasonable probability of success. It's also what you do with children, right? You want to push them because they need to grow up and be more than they are, right? But you don't want to crush them with constant failure. So what you do is aim high and make the goal difficult but proximal.
It's very important for you to believe that you are the one to make this happen. I remember this high school teacher, Mr. Leroy Washington, at the end of school one June, it was just a few days before we were supposed to leave, and I just got my report card, and it indicated that I'd failed history, and I'd failed English, and I would have to go to summer school. And I was feeling within myself that I was a failure, that I'm slower than most people in getting paperwork, and I was feeling down on myself and very negative. And Mr. Washington was giving a speech to the graduating seniors, and I was in 11th grade. And even though I wasn't supposed to be in there, I went in there because the speech he was giving, that speech was for me. And as he talked, my heart began to beat fast. Tears began to run down my eyes, and I was in the back just listening to him, because he said, and he was a very dramatic man. I still talk to him to this day. He said, as graduating seniors of Booker T. Washington High School, I want you to know that you're blessed and highly favored, and that as you go toward the future, begin to know that you have greatness within you. And if just one of you here begin to envision yourselves as being blessed and highly favored to reach your goals, if just one of you capture the essence of what that means, that you have greatness within you and a responsibility to manifest that greatness, that you can make your parents proud, you can make your school proud, you can touch millions of people's lives, and the world will never be the same again because you came this way. And the students gave him a rousing standing ovation. And as he left the auditorium, I ran down the steps and I caught him in the parking lot. I said, Mr. Washington? He said, yes. I said, do you remember me, sir? He said, no. I said, my name is Leslie Brown. My mother, she works in the cafeteria here. I'm one of the twins, Leslie and Wesley. I said, Mr. Washington, but you know, I got these big dreams. I like talking to people. I love people. I said, I want to work with people, and I got this dream of buying my mama a home. Could I do that, Mr. Washington? He said, it's possible, Mr. Brown. And as he walked away, I called him again. I said, Mr. Washington? He said, what do you want now? I said, I'm the one, sir. I said, I'm the one. You remember me, sir. I'm Miss Mamie Brown's boy. I'm the one. I'm the one.